Two people are now under arrest in a connection with a deadly fire that killed a pregnant woman and her two young children. Two others were hurt when the home went up in flames in Strawberry Mansion earlier this month.
Family of the victims identified them as AshleyThompson, who was 7 months pregnant, and her two children, 6-year-old Assad and 4-year-old Aliyah. The fire department says it responded to the home just before 5 a.m. A woman is recovering after she jumped from the burning building with a baby in her arms. She and the 1-year-old she was holding are in critical condition. We spoke to the victim's cousin, who was in disbelief.
I don't know how to feel. I just know Ashley was a great mother and to her kids, and she just wanted to get out of there. She just wanted to move.
It was just before sunrise when neighbors on North Corliss Street in the Strawberry Mansion neighborhood of Philadelphia heard the crackle of flames and the desperate screams of a mother. Inside, 32-year-old AshleyThompson, 8 months pregnant, lay dead on the second floor of a row home. Her two young children, 6-year-old Assad Thompson and 4-year-old Aliyah Thompson Newell, were rushed to hospital and later also died. Only a 54-year-old woman and her 2-year-old great-niece managed to escape the inferno by jumping from a second-floor window. And then came the revelation. Authorities say this house fire was no tragic accident, it was arson. Before we begin, I noticed that 75% of you watching right now aren't subscribed. On True Crime 911, we tell real stories that haunt long after the credits roll. If you'd rather scroll past tragedy than face it, go ahead. But if you believe every victim deserves their story told, then hit subscribe right now. And if you won't, tell us in the comments why, because silence doesn't save lives. By dawn, 3 lives were gone, and investigators quickly realized this wasn't an accident. In the quiet hours before dawn, in the Strawberry Mansion section of Philadelphia, 31-year-old AshleyThompson sat in her row home with her 2 small children, 6-year-old Assad Thompson and 4-year-old Aliyah Thompson Newell, and she was just months away from welcoming a new baby into the world. Ashley was described by friends and family as a young mother who gave everything she had to her children. A GoFundMe page set up after her death said her kids were her joy, her purpose, and the light of so many lives around them. On a sunny afternoon not long before the tragedy, she would have been photographed smiling, her hand resting gently on her pregnant belly, her children at her side, their faces bright with hope. She had plans. She believed in tomorrow. She believed her children's future could be better. No one imagined the night ahead would erase those hopes. Assad, just 6 years old, loved to laugh. Aliyah, just 4, adored her big brother and looked up to him in every way. Their mother, Ashley, balanced what she had: a steady job, a home in a tight-knit block of North Corliss Street, and a deep love for her growing family. Her story wasn't one of fame. It wasn't one of high drama. It was ordinary. A young woman building a life with her children, carrying a new life within her. And in that ordinariness lay its tragedy. Because on June 13th, 2025, at around 5:40 a.m., that ordinary morning would never arrive. And so we begin. The neighborhood known as Strawberry Mansion lies just east of the vast green expanse of Fairmount Park in North Philadelphia. Its tree-lined pathways only minutes from Center City, yet its blocks tell of a very different story. Once called Somerville, the area transformed in the late 1800s to a working-class residential district thanks to the trolley lines that connected residents to lakeside amusements and the lush backdrop of the park. But the neighborhood's proud roots also carry the weight of what's been lost. A home built with purpose, a community once vibrant, a mother and her children now caught in its shadows. In this very neighborhood, On a row home block on North Corley Street, the story of Ashley Thompson unfolds. In the heart of Strawberry Mansion, at 2500 North Corley Street, stood a small, aging row home, one of hundreds just like it. But inside these walls lived a multi-generational family that held each other close through hard times. 31-year-old Ashley Thompson shared the home with Sherry Jackson, a 54-year-old woman who had known Ashley for years, a caretaker, a mother figure, and the glue that helped hold the household together. It wasn't just Ashley and her two young kids, 6-year-old Assad and 4-year-old Aliyah. This home pulsed with the sounds of family. 2 generations, 2 mothers, 4 children, and 1 baby on the way. To outsiders, it looked like any other home on the block. An ordinary house where ordinary people were just trying to get by. But to Ashley, it was the center of her world. The place where she planned her future, where her children laughed, learned, and fell asleep feeling safe. That night, the routine was the same as always. Dinner dishes drawing on the rack, the smell of hair oil and baby lotion hanging in the air, the hum of a box fan in the corner. Assad begged for one more story. Aliyah clung to her mother's arm. Ashley's hand brushed over her growing belly as she whispered, "One more, then bed." In that little house, life was calm, warm, familiar, but outside, someone else was moving in the dark, watching, waiting, planning. While Ashley tucked her children in, someone outside was already planning their deaths. Every time you ignore stories like this, another case fades into silence. Don't let Ashley become another name lost to the ashes. Subscribe to True Crime 911 and keep her story alive. And if you won't, at least explain in the comments why her memory doesn't deserve your click. It was 4:50 a.m. on Friday, June 13, 2025, when a silent alarm shattered the early morning stillness of the 2500 block of North Corley Street in Philadelphia's Strawberry Mansion neighborhood. Within moments, the calm of an ordinary house became a wall of flame. Windows burst open as orange heat ripped through the second-floor living quarters. Thick black smoke billowed into the pre-dawn sky, throwing the street into stark relief under the warning glow. Firefighters arrived to find the row home fully engulfed, the blaze having already taken strong hold. They forced their way inside while shouts of "Get out! Get out!" echoed through the corridor. Neighbors, alerted by cracking glass and sirens, stood frozen in shock as the inferno claimed its victims. Inside, chaos. The 54-year-old resident, identified as Sherry Jackson, made a desperate leap from a second-floor window, clutching a 2-year-old child in her arms, escaping the maelstrom by sheer will. Both were later hospitalized in stable condition. But on the floor above, investigators discovered a different reality. 31-year-old Ashley Thompson, several months pregnant, was found lifeless. Her 2 children, 6-year-old Assad Thompson and 4-year-old Aliyah Thompson Newell, were pulled from the wreckage and rushed to hospital where they later died. Row after row of emergency vehicles lined the street as the fire was brought under control at roughly 5:13 a.m. But for Ashley and her children, the dawn that night never came.
I don't know how to feel. I just know Ashley was a great mother and to her kids, and she just wanted to get out of there. She just wanted to move. We was about to move.
I feel bad for them kids, and then she was pregnant on top of that, so I'm just glad they caught somebody for it.
In a house once filled with bedtime stories and whispered goodnights, the smoke left only unanswered questions and a community in mourning. By sunrise, the once lively home at 2500 North Corley Street was nothing more than a burned-out shell. The windows, gone. The walls, charred and hollow. The air is still thick with smoke and grief. Firefighters, men and women hardened by years on the job, could barely hold back tears. They'd seen tragedy before, but this one, a pregnant mother and 2 small children, hit differently. One of them whispered to a colleague, "I've got kids that age." Neighbors gathered in disbelief along the police tape, some praying out loud, others clinging to one another in silence. A woman dropped to her knees on the sidewalk, clutching a photo someone had placed near the curb. For hours, the street stayed blocked off, flashing red and blue lights painting the early morning haze. The smell of smoke carried for blocks. Reporters began to arrive, cameras rolling, asking the same question everyone else was asking. How could this happen? At first, it looked like a tragic accident, an electrical fire maybe, or a candle left burning. But hours later, as the flames cooled and the investigation began, arson investigators found something that changed everything. By late morning, Philadelphia fire marshal's investigators began combing through what was left of the house on North Corley Street. At first, the blaze looked too intense, too fast-moving to be an accident, and before long, the evidence started to confirm their suspicions. Near the back door, partially melted but unmistakable, they found a red gas can, one that didn't belong to anyone in the home. Lab tests later confirmed what they already feared, the presence of accelerants throughout the hallway and stairwell. The burn pattern told a story, one of intent. This fire had started low and spread unnaturally quick, feeding off the accelerant before trapping the family upstairs. Across the street, detectives canvassed the area for security footage, and within hours, they got their first big lead. A dark-colored sedan captured on a neighbor's Ring camera, slowly circling the block around 4:30 a.m., just minutes before the flames erupted. The vehicle idles briefly, headlights dimmed before pulling away down the narrow street. For investigators, that was the moment the case shifted. This wasn't an act of fate, it was murder, carefully planned and deliberately set. And whoever was behind it knew exactly who was inside that house. One of the names that surfaced early in the investigation was Flynette Newell, 44, not a stranger to the home, but the sister of the 54-year-old survivor, Sherry Jackson. Investigators say Newell and Jackson had been locked in a bitter dispute over the ownership and use of the row home on North Corley Street for about a year. Neighbors and family members later told reporters the argument wasn't private squabbling, it had turned threatening. Jackson told police she had complained for months about Newell's behavior and that Newell had once warned her in plain language that she would burn the house with her in it. That allegation, documented in news interviews and police summaries, shifted the investigation from a tragic accident to a possible motive. As detectives dug deeper, the property fight emerged as more than paperwork and angry words. It became a thread tying motive to method. The discovery of accelerant and a suspicious vehicle on camera, combined with Jackson's claims about prior threats, gave investigators probable cause to treat the fire as deliberate and to focus on those who'd been publicly at odds over the home. By the end of the week, the investigation had moved swiftly. On June 18th, Philadelphia police announced 2 arrests: 44-year-old Flynette Newell and 67-year-old Charles Sumter. The pair was taken into custody at separate locations without incident. Both were charged with 3 counts of murder, arson, conspiracy, and a list of related offenses. Detectives say Newell, the sister of survivor Sherry Jackson, had been embroiled in an escalating feud over the ownership of the North Corley Street home. Sumter, believed to be a close acquaintance and alleged accomplice, was accused of helping carry out the attack that left Ashley Thompson, her 2 young children, and her unborn baby dead. Investigators laid out their findings. The gas can recovered from the scene. Accelerant patterns traced to the front entrance. Surveillance footage placing a car linked to Sumter near the block just before the fire. Piece by piece, it all led back to them. And when detectives revealed the motive, even hardened officers wept. While you're watching from the safety of your screen, families like Ashley's are fighting for justice in silence. Don't just consume tragedy, confront it. Subscribe to True Crime 911 so these stories don't die the moment you click away. And if you refuse, tell us why you'd rather stay comfortable than remember her. In the days that followed, Sherry Jackson remained hospitalized with burns and smoke inhalation. Doctors say it was a miracle she survived. But as her body healed, something else began to take hold. The kind of pain no medicine can reach. She'd leapt from a second-floor window, clutching a toddler, the only child who would live through that fire. That 2-year-old, the last surviving piece of Ashley's young family, became the silent witness to everything lost. Friends describe Sherry as tormented by survivor's guilt, replaying those final minutes over and over. She told investigators that she'd tried to get everyone out, but the smoke was too thick, the flames too fast. And when she heard Ashley's voice upstairs calling for her babies, she knew she couldn't reach her. Neighbors visited the hospital with flowers, prayers, and tears. They said Sherry barely spoke, that she just stared at the ceiling, whispering the same question over and over. Why them? Why not me? Outside, memorials grew. Balloons, stuffed animals, handwritten notes. The names Ashley, Assad, and Aliyah scrawled across poster boards in marker. The city of Philadelphia grieved, but for Sherry Jackson, healing wasn't just about her wounds. It was about learning how to live in a world where her home, her family, and her peace had all burned away in a single night. In the days following the arrests, Philadelphia prosecutors made their stance clear. They weren't treating this as a tragic accident, or even a moment of rage. This was murder, deliberate, calculated, and unforgivable. District Attorney Larry Krasner's office announced it would pursue full murder charges against both Philippe Newell, 44, and Charles Sumter, 67. The counts included 3 murders for Ashley, 6-year-old Assad, and 4-year-old Aliyah, plus a 4th for Ashley's unborn child, recognizing the baby as a victim under Pennsylvania law. Arson, conspiracy, reckless endangerment, every charge painted a picture of betrayal and intent. Prosecutors told the court that the 2 acted together with malice and premeditation. Outside the courthouse, community members gathered with candles and posters, some who knew Ashley, others who simply couldn't bear the thought of a pregnant mother and her children dying that way. One woman held a sign that read, "Justice for Ashley, justice for every mother who thought she was safe at home." They weren't statistics. They weren't just names in a police report. They were family. Bedtime giggles, Sunday dinners, school mornings, and dreams of a new baby on the way. They were laughter, tiny shoes by the door, fingerprints on the walls. They were futures, stolen in the dark. And though justice may come in courtrooms and headlines, it will never replace what was lost on North Corley Street that morning. That evening, as the sun sank behind the Philadelphia skyline, the neighborhood gathered outside the ruins on North Corley Street. There were tears, prayers, and silence, but also something stronger, remembrance. One woman, her voice trembling, said words that carried through the crowd. "We light candles not for what was lost, but for what still lives in memory." Those flames burned quietly into the night, symbols of hope, defiance, and love that refused to die, even in the ashes of what once was. AshleyThompson's story isn't just about one night. It's about how hate and grief can smolder long before they ignite. It's about what happens when anger becomes fuel and love becomes a casualty. Stories like this don't come easy. Every second you've watched took hours of research, writing, and heartache to make sure Ashley's voice was heard the right way. If you felt something, sadness, anger, even disbelief, don't just scroll away. Subscribe to True Crime 911 so more stories like this can be told with the care and truth they deserve. Because when you subscribe, you're not helping an algorithm. You're helping a voice stay alive. And if you still won't subscribe, then tell us in the comments why. Why her memory doesn't deserve one click. Why shouldn't her story be remembered? In memory of AshleyThompson, AshleyThompson, and Aaliyah Thompson Newell. True Crime 911, where every story matters.